Hello everybody and welcome back to Maths and Miss Buick. In this video we're focusing on hypothesis testing for a population proportion. So a hypothesis test is a statement made about some statistic of the population. And a hypothesis test is a statistical method of proving the truth or otherwise of a statement. So in your Leaving Cert exam, you'll be given a statement with some numbers about a particular drug, about a species of animal, anything like that, and you will be asked to prove whether it is true or it is not true, whether it's changed or whether it's not changed, and of course that is using a hypothesis test. So next of all, you write down your formula here for your 95% population proportion. This part of your formula, as I said in a previous video on the 95% population proportion, is found in your log tables on page 34. This part, which is your sample proportion, is not in the tables, so please remember to put the p hat in front of this part here. So once you've carried out your interval, you then have to say whether you're going to accept or reject your H0. So if the population proportion stated within the question is within the confidence interval, you do not reject the H0. And if P is outside the interval, reject H0 and accept H1. So the most important aspect of hypothesis testing is identifying the correct formula, writing it down, substituting in the values and forming your interval, and then saying whether you're going to accept or reject your H0. So here we have an example. So a drug company produced a new pain relieving drug and claimed that it had a 90% success rate. This part here is your population proportion. So let's put that in red. That there is your p-value. That's the first thing to note. A group of doctors wanted to test this claim. They prescribed the drug to 150 patients. After 6 months, 120 of these patients had seen a positive effect. At the 5% level of significance, can the company's claim be upheld? So we firstly began by writing down what is our H0 and our H1. Okay, so our H0 is our null and our H1 is our alternative. And these values are the p-value, in other words, the 90%. So the 90% is our null. We can also write this as 0.9 in terms of decimal if you want. And then the alternative is the opposite. We're saying that the success rate was not 90%. It's a different percentage, as long as it's not 90. So let's change this and say not equal to 90%. Or also not equal to 0.9 there. Okay, so that's the first step done. Next of all, let's write out our formula for our population proportion, the 95% confidence interval one. So the p hat plus or minus 1.96, we have the square root of p1 minus p all over n. Okay, next of all, we're going to identify what is our p hat. So let's put that up here. Our p hat, our p-value, and our n-value. So this is our population proportion, which is 90%. So we'll keep that as 0.9. So let's change it all to decimal. So population proportion is 0.9. Our sample proportion will be a calculation here. So we take our 120 of our patients who said that there was a difference, I suppose, with using the drug, so it's 120, all over the total number of patients, 150. And if we calculate that, that will be 0.8. And then our n is our total number of patients that were given the drug to test out in the question, that's 150. So we have our three values here. We have our p hat, we have our p, and we have our n. Next of all, we have to substitute them in. So we can still do that on this board. I think I have enough room. So let's substitute them in and let's form our interval. So we have our p hat, which is 0.8 plus or minus 1.96 square root of p, which is 0.9, 1 minus 0.9 all over 150, because that is our n value. We can then go to our calculator and work it out. Now I've this previously done out already for you, so I have the numbers already. So let's write those numbers down. So we have the negative, when we substituted in the negative part and left it all of the rest of it as it is, we get 0.752. And then when we put in the positive sign here, we get 0.848. Okay, so there is our interval done. So let's put a red box around that as well. Actually, let's do different colours, do green. So we have our interval. So this is our interval, our 95% confidence interval for our population proportion. Now we're on to the fourth part, where we have to say whether we're going to accept or reject. Okay, so part 4. Well, P, as we know, is equal to 0.9. That is our population proportion. And we can see that 0.9 is not within the interval. So in this case, we are going to reject the null hypothesis H0 and accept the alternative. So let's write that down in word format. So 0.9 is not within the confidence interval. That's the first sentence. So we reject H0 and accept H1. We conclude that the success rate of the drug is not 90%, and we're done. So we can reject P, which is our population portion, because our P value is not within this interval, and we are done.